Are you struggling with rulings in the game of Lorcana, and you need to make sure that anything you do or anything your opponent does is accurate? Then let's cover it. Today I've got 3 Lorcana rulings for you to now be aware of on this edition of XMarksTheLore. Courts in session. Before I do my usual intro shtick this time round, I don't think I'm appropriate for a courtroom, so let me get updated quickly. Bear with me. Court's in session, boys. It's time for judge rulings. Court is in session, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm your defense attorney for today, Dom the Protocols here on XMarksTheLore, where today we'll be covering 3 rulings that you may not be aware of in the game of Lorcana. Let's dive straight into it with ruling number 1. So picture the scenario. On our side of the board, we have a Prince Philip ready to go in order to do the Prince Philip combo. However, our opponent on their side of the board has characters with resist, with resist mechanics specifically stating that if a character is dealt damage, they do not receive the damage according to the level of resist that they have. These characters, for example, are Calhouns with resist +1. The rulings question here is simple. If I was to sing Malicious, Mean and Scary with Prince Philip, does that mean that both Calhouns would still take 1 damage? The answer, yes. And here's the reason why. The main reason for this is because Malicious, Mean and Scary does not deal damage. Instead, it puts damage. And the wording here is extremely important. This is also important if you are playing anything like the Amethyst Cheshire Cat that moves damage, because again, moving damage is not dealing damage, which is the big thing we're trying to resolve here. So because we are putting damage and not dealing damage, resist does not come into play. Therefore, the single damage from Malicious, Mean and Scary gets applied to both Calhouns. Then we can feel free to shift into our big Prince Philip and fulfill the Prince Philip combo. It is key to note that in this example as well, if Calhoun wasn't a threat, and let's say we had an opposing character with Ward on the board instead, it would still work, because Ward specifically states that the character is chosen for an ability or effect. What we're doing is not choosing, it's just allocating it to all opposing characters, so resist and ward do not come into play when performing the Prince Philip combo. Take that! In this example, we have the brand new legendary Rapunzel on our side of the board. As well as the legendary Rapunzel, we have 2 Hey Hey boat stacks that also have support on them. So what would happen if I quested with Hey Hey number 1 in order to then give support and Rapunzel's effect to Hey Hey number 2? Then quested with Hey Hey number 2 to apply the effect again on Hey Hey number 2, making him bigger, and apply another bubbled effect from Rapunzel. Does it work? The answer is no. Allow me to explain why. This is how Rapunzel's effect works. If I was to use the exact same example, and Hey Hey 1 quests in order to give support over to Hey Hey 2 now turns into a 2/2 and has Rapunzel's effect. So the first time that specific Hey Hey would be dealt damage, they are dealt no damage instead. That's absolutely fine. But when the second Hey Hey quests and applies the same ability to itself, it does benefit from support, so it will now turn into a 3/2. However, the bubble doesn't stack. Think of it as this. Rapunzel allocates a bubble over the character that you have allocated it to. Once you have that bubble, there can only ever be one bubble around that character at any point. So if Hey Hey number 2 supports himself, for whatever reason that may be, you would pop the initial bubble only to reallocate the bubble. Therefore meaning there is still only one bubble in effect, and your opponent only has to deal damage to Hey Hey once to remove the bubble, and then Hey Hey can be damaged again. The best way to take advantage of Rapunzel's effect is for Hey Hey number 1 to quest, give support to Hey Hey number 2, and then Hey Hey number 2 has a bubble. Then Hey Hey number 2 can quest and support Hey Hey number 1, giving Hey Hey number 1 a bubble. This therefore means that all of your characters are bubbled once, meaning that any damage that is dealt to them will be null and void the first time round. And that is a better allocation of Rapunzel's ability rather than stacking the bubble, because you cannot stack the Rapunzel bubble. I hope that explains things for you.
Take that!
In this scenario, we have two Ruby characters, Baloo and Shere Khan. Baloo has the effect where characters of a specific attack level or higher simply cannot be dealt damage. But Shere Khan has the ability where if we pay 1 ink and deal 1 damage to him, we can then ready him. He can't quest or do anything like that for the rest of the turn, but he can still challenge. So effectively, can we activate the effect of Shere Khan endlessly without taking any damage just because we have Baloo in play? No, we can't. And in fact, Baloo actually stops you from using Shere Khan's effect. Let's talk about it. The main reason why this is because Shere Khan's effect is a cost. So effectively, you have to pay for 1 ink and have to deal that 1 damage to Shere Khan in order for Shere Khan to be readied. Because Baloo makes it so that Shere Khan cannot be dealt damage whilst that Baloo is in play, this therefore means the Shere Khan cannot fulfill the requirements of the cost, and therefore you can spend 1 ink and it does nothing, meaning Shere Khan will be left sideways, and that is it. Baloo has screwed over your own game plan. If you do want to benefit from Shere Khan's effect without taking the damage, rather than relying on a character like Baloo that effectively shuts down the effect, instead you'll be better off applying resist to Shere Khan. By applying resist onto Shere Khan will still be dealt 1 damage because that damage is not being negated. What's effectively happening is that the damage hits resist and bounces off of Shere Khan, meaning that yes, he's dealt damage, the damage just bumps off, and then we can ready Shere Khan, and Shere Khan can get in there for another challenge. A better way to utilize the cat and not relying on Baloo, because trust me, Baloo, as much as he's helpful, can screw over this very specific combo. Now hopefully you learned something in court today, and if you did, be sure to let me know what you learned down in the comment section below. And whilst you're down there in the comment section, I want to defend you and represent you when it comes to playing your games of Lorcana. Let me know any game rulings that you are confused by or that you may be a little bit hum-ha about down in the comments, and you could be featured in my next rulings video. If you want any more rulings based content, I do also make rulings based content in my short form content here on YouTube, as well as over on Instagram and TikTok. Go check out as much of that as you can if you are interested in some quirky rulings in the game of Lorcana. But until next time, when we're either sailing the Azurite Sea or attending court, I will be seeing you for another edition of XMarksTheLore. Until next time, folks, set sail, weigh anchor, and I'll be seeing you next time. Court is done.